Hello, the unspoken woman. Welcome to the channel. Before we begin, remember this. The loneliest person in the room isn't always the one standing alone. Sometimes it's the one surrounded by people who were never truly there. Think about that for a second. Here's a surprising fact. Psychologists have found that the quality of your relationships has a far greater impact on your well-being than the number of people in your life. In other words, having 50 contacts in your phone means very little if not one of them truly knows you. Now, when people look at a Sigma female, they usually jump to the wrong conclusion. They assume she's cold, difficult, too independent. Maybe she's too picky or too intimidating. That's the easy explanation, the one people tell themselves because it's simpler than facing the truth. But what if she's alone for a completely different reason? What if the people who disappeared from her life didn't leave because she pushed them away, but because they could no longer benefit from having access to her? Here's something almost nobody talks about. Sigma females don't usually lose people through explosive arguments or dramatic betrayals. More often, they lose people quietly. One day they stop chasing, stop explaining, stop fixing, stop pretending. And suddenly the people who claimed they cared are nowhere to be found. It's amazing how many relationships disappear the moment you stop carrying them. Funny enough, some people burn more calories avoiding accountability than they ever would at the gym. In this video, we're going far beyond the usual clichés. No recycled advice, no tired myths about being too strong or too mysterious. Instead, we're uncovering the hidden reasons why Sigma females often end up with very few people in their lives, and why that loneliness is sometimes the price of seeing people exactly as they are. Some of these truths are uncomfortable. Some might completely change how you see relationships, and if you stay until the end, you may realize that having nobody isn't always a tragedy. Sometimes it's the first sign that you've stopped settling. Number 1. They notice tiny acts of disrespect that everyone else misses. Most people think relationships end because of one huge betrayal. Sigma females know that's rarely how it happens. More often, it's the tiny things that quietly expose who someone really is. They notice the friend who only listens long enough to start talking about themselves. They notice the person who keeps forgetting promises, but somehow never forgets anything that benefits them. They notice the joke that was disguised as humor but was actually meant to embarrass. They notice being interrupted every time they speak, being left out of important conversations, or only being remembered when someone needs a favor. To most people, these moments seem too small to matter. They brush them off, make excuses, or convince themselves they're overthinking. A Sigma female does something different. She doesn't overreact, but she doesn't ignore them either. She understands that character doesn't reveal itself only in major events. It leaks through everyday habits. That's why people are often shocked when she quietly walks away. They remember the last conversation and think, everything seemed fine. What they don't realize is that she wasn't reacting to one incident. She was responding to a long pattern that had been building for months, sometimes even years. She believes respect isn't measured by grand gestures. It's measured in the ordinary moments when nobody is trying to impress anyone. The little things are where genuine character lives. This doesn't mean she's looking for flaws or expecting perfection. Everyone makes mistakes. The difference is consistency. When the same acts of carelessness, selfishness, or quiet disrespect keep showing up, she stops calling them accidents. She starts calling them evidence, and once someone repeatedly shows her exactly how little they value her presence, she doesn't argue, demand change, or make dramatic exits. She simply adjusts their access to her life. That's the part many people never see coming. They mistake her silence for acceptance, when in reality, she's already made her decision. By the time they notice she's emotionally gone, she's been leaving in her mind for a very long time. Number 2, they refuse to become someone's emotional recycling bin. One of the quietest reasons Sigma females end up with very few people in their lives is that they eventually stop carrying emotional weight that doesn't belong to them. At first, they're the person everyone runs to. Friends unload their frustrations. Family members vent for hours. Co-workers complain about their lives. Strangers even feel comfortable sharing deeply personal problems. A Sigma female listens because she genuinely cares, not because she's trying to earn approval. But over time, she begins to notice something disturbing. The conversations are almost always one-sided. People feel lighter after talking to her, yet she walks away, emotionally drained. They know everything about her ability to listen, but almost nothing about her dreams, fears, or struggles. She's become a safe place for everyone else while having no safe place of her own. That's when something changes. She realizes that some people don't actually value her. They value the relief she provides. To them, she's less of a friend and more of an emotional dumping ground. They don't call to see how she's doing. They call because they need somewhere to unload another crisis. The moment she stops answering every late-night complaint or solving every problem, the relationship begins to fade. Not because she became selfish, but because the connection was never balanced to begin with. A Sigma female understands that compassion should never require self-neglect. Listening is an act of kindness, but constantly absorbing other people's anger, negativity, and chaos is not a responsibility anyone should carry forever. She would rather have one person who asks, "How are you holding up?" than 10 people who only remember her when their world is falling apart. That decision often leaves her with fewer people around her, but the ones who remain are different. They don't just take her peace, they protect it too. And that's a relationship worth keeping, because real connection doesn't leave one person exhausted while the other walks away feeling healed. It leaves both people feeling heard, respected, and equally valued. Number 3, they can feel when someone is studying them instead of knowing them. A Sigma female can usually tell the difference between someone who wants to understand her and someone who wants to figure her out. Those may sound like the same thing, but they couldn't be more different. Some people ask questions because they genuinely care. Others ask questions because they're collecting information. They pay close attention to what makes her happy, what upsets her, what she's insecure about, and how she reacts under pressure. It looks like interest on the surface, but underneath, it feels more like observation. She notices when conversations begin to feel less natural and more like interviews. She notices when someone remembers every personal detail she has shared but never opens up about themselves. She notices when people seem more fascinated by her reactions than by her actual thoughts. That makes her cautious. She understands that information is powerful. In the wrong hands, today's vulnerable confession can become tomorrow's weapon during an argument. A private fear can become a pressure point. A personal dream can become something to mock when things go wrong. This is why Sigma females rarely reveal everything about themselves all at once. It's not because they're trying to be mysterious. It's because they believe trust should grow over time, not be handed over in a single conversation. Ironically, this makes some people accuse her of being secretive. What they fail to understand is that privacy and dishonesty are not the same thing. She isn't hiding who she is. She's simply waiting to see who deserves access to that part of her life. When she realizes someone is more interested in analyzing her than building a genuine connection, she quietly creates distance. She has no desire to become someone's puzzle, project, or source of entertainment. She wants relationships where people are present, not calculating, where conversations build trust instead of collecting leverage. Because to her, the safest place is with someone who wants to know her heart, not someone who's busy mapping her weaknesses. Number 4. They quietly outgrow entire social circles. One of the hardest truths about a Sigma female is that she doesn't lose people because of conflict. She loses them because she refuses to stay the same just to keep everyone comfortable. Growth has a strange way of exposing relationships. The conversations that once felt exciting begin to feel empty. The jokes become predictable. The gossip loses its appeal. The endless complaints sound like a broken record. She starts realizing that some people aren't interested in becoming better. They're interested in staying familiar. While everyone else is talking about other people's lives, she's thinking about her own future. While they're repeating the same habits year after year, she's quietly changing hers. She reads more, reflects more, learns more, and becomes more intentional with how she spends her time. It isn't about believing she's better than anyone else. It's about refusing to stay where she no longer belongs. The difficult part is that growth is rarely loud. She doesn't announce that she's changing. She simply begins saying no to things she used to tolerate. She stops showing up to places that leave her feeling empty. She spends less time chasing conversations that go nowhere. People often take this personally. They think she's acting different, becoming distant, or looking down on them. In reality, she's simply becoming someone her old environment can no longer understand. The version of her they were comfortable with no longer exists. That's why her circle becomes smaller without any dramatic fallout. No shouting, no betrayal, no big goodbye. Just quiet distance created by different priorities. A Sigma female understands that not everyone is meant to walk with her forever. Some people are only part of one chapter, not the entire story. She would rather face the temporary loneliness that comes with growth than spend years pretending she still fits into places she outgrew long ago. To her, staying true to her evolution is worth far more than keeping relationships that only survive if she stops growing. Number 5. They rarely give people a second chance to show their priorities. A Sigma female has learned one lesson that many people spend years ignoring. Priorities don't need an explanation because they're already visible. She doesn't waste time asking, "Do you care about me?" Instead, she watches. She pays attention to who keeps their word without being reminded. She notices who makes time instead of making excuses. She sees who only reaches out when they need help and who checks in simply because they want to know how she's doing. To her, actions settle debates that words only complicate. When someone repeatedly places her at the bottom of their list, she doesn't chase them for answers. She doesn't beg for attention or demand to be treated better. She simply accepts the message their behavior has already delivered. The reason she rarely gives another chance isn't because she lacks forgiveness. It's because she believes repeated behavior is a choice. Everyone slips up once in a while. Life gets busy. People make mistakes. She understands that. But when the same pattern keeps showing up, she stops calling it an accident. She has seen too many people apologize with beautiful words while changing absolutely nothing. That's why she values consistency more than promises. Anyone can say, "I'll do better." Fewer people actually do. This often surprises those around her. They expect endless patience because she's calm and understanding. Instead, they discover that her kindness has boundaries. Once she realizes someone has shown her exactly where she stands in their life, she quietly adjusts her expectations. She doesn't make dramatic speeches or announce her departure. She simply stops investing where the return is always disappointment. Some people later accuse her of giving up too quickly. What they fail to see is that she didn't leave after one moment. She left after countless moments that all pointed in the same direction. By the time she walks away, she's already accepted a difficult truth. People rarely struggle to make time for what truly matters to them. And if someone continually treats you like an option, believing their actions is often wiser than believing their promises. Number 6, they become unrecognizable. Once they stop explaining themselves. One of the biggest turning points in a Sigma female's life happens the day she realizes she doesn't owe everyone an explanation. For years, she may have explained every decision she made. Why she couldn't attend an event, why she needed space, why she changed her mind, why she ended a friendship, why she chose a different path. She believed that if people understood her reasons, they would understand her heart. But life teaches her something different. Not everyone is asking for an explanation because they want to understand. Some people ask because they're looking for something to argue with. They don't want clarity, they want control. The longer she explains herself, the more they question, criticize, and try to convince her that her own choices are wrong. That's when she changes. She starts letting her decisions speak for themselves. No becomes a complete sentence. She no longer writes long messages defending her boundaries or spends hours trying to make everyone comfortable with choices that only she has to live with. This change catches people off guard. The woman who once answered every question now simply smiles and moves on. The woman who used to justify every boundary now quietly enforces it. Suddenly, people say she's changed, become distant, or thinks she's too good for everyone. The truth is much simpler. She has stopped asking for permission to live her own life. A Sigma female understands that the people who genuinely respect her don't require endless explanations. They may not always agree with her decisions, but they respect her right to make them. Those who demand constant justification often aren't looking for understanding. They're looking for influence. Ironically, the less she explains, the more mysterious she appears, yet there is nothing mysterious about her at all. She has simply learned that peace often begins where over-explaining ends. Number 7. They can tell the difference between being missed and being needed. There comes a point in a Sigma female's life when she asks herself one uncomfortable question. If I stopped solving everyone's problems, would they still look for me? The answer isn't always pleasant. She begins to notice a pattern. Some people only reach out when they're overwhelmed, confused, heartbroken, or in trouble. Their messages always start with a crisis. Their phone calls always come when they need advice, reassurance, or someone to rescue them emotionally. Once they feel better, they disappear until the next emergency. At first, she mistakes this for closeness. She believes she's important to them because they always come to her. But eventually, she realizes they're not looking for her. They're looking for what she can provide. There's a huge difference. Being missed means someone values your presence, your laughter, your ideas, and the simple joy of spending time with you. Being needed often means you're only remembered when there's a problem to solve. One relationship is built on appreciation. The other is built on convenience. A Sigma female refuses to confuse the two. She pays attention to who calls just to hear her voice, who checks in without asking for a favor, who celebrates her good news instead of only sharing bad news. Those small moments reveal more about a relationship than grand speeches ever could. Once she sees the truth, she quietly steps back. She stops being available every single time someone whistles for help. Not because she has stopped caring, but because she has started respecting herself. She knows that a healthy relationship shouldn't feel like a full-time emergency service. That decision often leaves her with fewer people around her, and some don't understand why she changed. But she hasn't become colder. She's simply stopped confusing usefulness with love. Number 8. They stop rewarding performative kindness. A Sigma female has learned that not every act of kindness comes from a kind heart. Some kindness is carefully timed, carefully displayed, and carefully designed to earn applause. She notices the person who praises someone in public but tears them down in private. The one who posts inspiring messages online but treats the people closest to them with impatience and disrespect. The friend who buys thoughtful gifts yet constantly reminds everyone how generous they are. To most people, these actions look impressive. To a Sigma female, they raise questions. She isn't interested in how good someone looks when people are watching. She's interested in who they become when no one is paying attention. Real kindness doesn't need an audience. It shows up in the quiet moments. It's keeping a promise that nobody else knows about. It's speaking with respect when there's nothing to gain. It's treating the waiter, the cleaner, the cashier, and the stranger with the same dignity as the boss or the important guest. A Sigma female pays attention to those details because they reveal character, not performance. This is why she sometimes walks away from people others admire. While everyone else is impressed by grand gestures and polished images, she's watching for consistency. She knows that one spectacular moment can be staged, but everyday behavior is much harder to fake. People often misunderstand her for this. They wonder why she's not easily won over by compliments, expensive gifts, or dramatic displays of affection. The answer is simple. She's waiting to see if those actions continue after the spotlight disappears. To her, love, friendship, and respect are proven in ordinary moments, not public performances. Number 9. They can detect transactional affection. A Sigma female pays close attention to something most people overlook. She watches whether love is given freely or quietly attached to conditions. At first, everything seems genuine. Someone is generous with their time, quick to offer help, and always willing to step in when needed. But after a while, the hidden price begins to appear. Every favor becomes a reminder. Every act of kindness turns into leverage. Every sacrifice is brought up during disagreements as proof that she owes them something. That's when she realizes the relationship isn't built on affection. It's built on accounting. She has no interest in keeping score. She believes real relationships don't operate like business deals, where every kind gesture creates an invisible debt. If someone constantly reminds you of everything they've done for you, they weren't giving out of love. They were making an investment and expecting a return. She also notices emotional transactions that aren't so obvious. Some people give compliments because they expect loyalty in return. Others offer support only so they'll have a say in your decisions later. Even attention can become a bargaining chip when it's used to control someone's choices. A Sigma female finds this exhausting. She would rather receive a simple, sincere act of kindness than 100 generous gestures that come with strings attached. Freedom matters to her. She wants relationships where both people give because they care, not because they're keeping a mental record of who owes whom. This is one reason her circle becomes so small. The moment she feels that every conversation, favor, or expression of love comes with hidden expectations, she begins to step back. Not out of pride, but out of self-respect. She knows that genuine affection never sends invoices. It doesn't demand repayment every time kindness is shown. The healthiest relationships are the ones where generosity flows naturally, appreciation is freely given, and nobody is secretly waiting to collect what they believe they're owed. To a Sigma female, Love loses its meaning the moment it starts feeling like a contract instead of a choice. Number 10. They stop being easy to predict. One thing that quietly sets a Sigma female apart is that she refuses to become a person who can be easily figured out. Not because she's trying to be mysterious, but because she never allows herself to become trapped in yesterday's version of who she was. Most people build a routine and stay there. They develop familiar habits, familiar opinions, and familiar reactions. Before long, everyone around them knows exactly what they'll say, how they'll respond, and what they'll tolerate. A Sigma female keeps evolving. She changes her mindset when she learns something new. She drops old beliefs that no longer make sense. She walks away from habits that once defined her. She isn't afraid to surprise people because she isn't trying to protect an image. She's trying to become a better version of herself. This unsettles more people than they realize. Some relationships are built on predictability. People feel comfortable when they know exactly how to influence someone, what excuses they'll accept, or how much they'll forgive. The moment a Sigma female changes those patterns, others begin to feel like they're losing control. Suddenly, the woman who always said yes politely says no. The woman who always stayed silent finally speaks up. The woman who tolerated being overlooked quietly walks away without an argument. People call it acting different. She's not acting, she's growing. What confuses others the most is that her growth doesn't come with announcements. She doesn't post about it, seek validation, or try to prove she's changed. She simply lives differently, and her actions speak louder than any explanation ever could. That's why some people drift away. They weren't connected to the real woman. They were connected to the version they had memorized. Once she stopped behaving in ways they could predict, they no longer knew how to relate to her. Number 11. They sometimes become too comfortable with losing people. This is perhaps the hardest truth a Sigma female will ever face. Not because it's easy to admit, but because it quietly becomes part of who she is. After enough disappointment, enough broken trust, and enough one-sided relationships, something inside her changes. Walking away no longer feels painful. It feels normal. At first, this seems like strength. She no longer chases people. She doesn't beg anyone to stay. She doesn't lose sleep trying to fix relationships that only she is fighting for. If someone leaves, she opens the door instead of blocking it. But there's a hidden danger in becoming too good at letting people go. Over time, protecting her peace can slowly turn into protecting herself from everyone. She becomes so used to expecting disappointment that she starts keeping people at a distance before they've had the chance to prove they're different. Not because they have done something wrong, but because experience has taught her to prepare for the ending before the beginning has even had a chance to grow. That's when loneliness stops being a circumstance and starts becoming a habit. She convinces herself she's simply being careful, when in reality, she may be closing the door on people who genuinely care. Every relationship carries some risk. Every meaningful connection requires a little vulnerability. Without it, even the most sincere people never get close enough to earn her trust. A Sigma female understands that boundaries are necessary, but walls are something else entirely. Boundaries protect healthy relationships. Walls prevent them from ever existing. The strongest Sigma female isn't the one who can walk away from everyone without looking back. It's the one who has the wisdom to recognize the rare people who deserve to stay. Because not everyone who enters your life comes to take something from you. Some arrive to bring peace, loyalty, and honesty. The challenge is not just learning when to let people go. It's learning when to stop expecting every new person to pay for the mistakes of the last one. That balance is what turns solitude into strength instead of isolation into a prison. Number 12. They refuse to become someone's permanent almost. A Sigma female has little patience for people who keep her trapped in the space between maybe and never. She has learned that one of the most exhausting places to live is in constant uncertainty. She notices the people who always promise that things will be different soon, the friend who keeps saying they'll make time but never does, the partner who talks about commitment but never commits, the person who always has a reason why today isn't the right time, while quietly expecting her to keep waiting. At first, she gives people grace. She understands that life gets complicated, plans change, people struggle. But when later becomes a permanent answer, she begins to see it for what it is. Delay can become a decision. She refuses to spend years waiting for someone to become who they keep saying they'll be. She knows that potential is attractive, but consistency is what builds trust. A future full of promises means very little when the present is full of hesitation. What surprises people is that she doesn't leave in anger. She leaves in clarity. She realizes that someone who truly values a relationship doesn't keep it sitting on a shelf until it's convenient. They make room for it. They protect it. They invest in it. Effort may not always be perfect, but it should always be visible. That's why she walks away from situations that others hold on to for years. She refuses to become someone's backup plan, emotional safety net, or almost appreciated, almost chosen, almost important, almost loved. She believes life is too short to build a home inside someone else's uncertainty. This choice often leaves her standing alone, and to outsiders it may look like she's giving up too easily. But they don't see what she sees. She isn't walking away from possibility. She's walking toward certainty. She would rather face the honesty of being alone than the confusion of constantly wondering where she stands. To a Sigma female, peace begins the moment she stops waiting for people to choose her and starts choosing herself without hesitation. Conclusion. The biggest misunderstanding about Sigma females is that people believe they're alone because they push everyone away. But after everything we've explored, the truth is far more complicated. They don't walk away because they hate people. They walk away because they've learned the difference between being valued and being used, between genuine respect and empty attention, between real connection and convenient companionship. Their lives become quieter not because they stop caring, but because they stop accepting relationships that constantly ask them to sacrifice their peace. They begin to realize that loneliness isn't always the worst place to be. Sometimes the worst place is feeling alone while surrounded by people who never truly see you. At the same time, there's an important lesson here for every Sigma female. Guarding your heart is wise, but don't let wisdom become isolation. The strongest person isn't the one who trusts no one. The strongest person is the one who knows who deserves that trust and has the courage to give it when it's earned. Quality will always outweigh quantity. One honest relationship is worth more than 100 shallow connections. One loyal friend can bring more peace than a room full of people who only appear when it's convenient. If today's video made you see Sigma females, or even your own relationships, in a different light, then you've already taken the first step toward understanding what genuine connection really looks like. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss future insights like these. If one of these points resonated with you, share it in the comments. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And remember, having fewer people in your life isn't a sign that you've failed. Sometimes it's proof that you've finally stopped settling for less than you deserve.